Higher Inner Power, a reflection of true hip-hop culture, a study of hip-hop, and an execution of sticking to the roots while also propelling everything forward. Welcome back to another episode of Higher Inner Power. I'm your host, Ty Frazier, aka Supernova. Hope you're staying blessed, staying well, staying healthy, enjoying time with your loved ones during these summer days. Today I have a very special guest, my homie Rashid. He's a spiritual scholar, lyricist, MC, author, legend, and so much more. I'm really excited to share this conversation with y'all. Hopefully you gain some jewels and some wisdom. Hope you enjoy. Appreciate y'all tuning in to Higher Inner Power. This is your host, Ty Frazier, aka Supernova. Got a very special guest with me on the phone. How about you introduce yourself one time?
Peace, King. Peace, family. This is Rashid.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate you joining me today. Appreciate you taking the time out.
That's right. Thank you, man. I appreciate you for inviting me to the platform.
Hey, most definitely. So my first question would be, how did you get into the culture of hip-hop? Like, what was your first introduction into the culture?
I want to say my initial introduction was it was a trip to the Bronx to go see my cousins when I was a kid, and it came in the form of, in a few days, I remember seeing this interesting video with Michael McLaren, and it was called Buffalo Gals, and it was hip-hop infused. They were doing breakdancing, they were doing graffiti and everything, and I remember one of my older cousins had a pair of Nike Cortez sneakers, and he used this word associated to them called fresh. And I've never heard, you know what I mean? I just never heard the word fresh used in a different connotation. And right then and there, I knew that hip-hop kind of was like, all of these elements that I was being exposed to early on, I was like, wow, all of this stuff is like, I didn't know to put the language or to say the word, like, oh, this is a culture, but I knew I was a part of something, and there was something in there that I was always searching for, you know?
Yeah. So for you, the first introduction was just the use of that language.
Yeah, no question. So it's almost like hip-hop in that sense is like a language in and of itself. You know what I'm saying? That it doesn't matter if we were to embark on a journey and go tour the globe. We can show up in Africa, we can show up in Europe, we can show up in Asia, and we will have the same nuances and similarities if we were all going to be around people who were emotionally or artistically invested in the art form. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's deep. That's very powerful. Just like basically what you're saying, hip-hop is a language that breaks all boundaries. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because it speaks directly kind of to the human need to consistently express itself in a way where humans express themselves almost as a healing modality, and every culture has this function in the arts where the arts allow the human to use it as a vehicle to express themselves and almost like have like kind of a transcendental experience. I know you know this as an MC. Mm-hmm. You guys kind of feel like you leave your body when you're doing like a real good performance or you're around a great crowd. Mm-hmm. So that mode of expression kind of exemplifies, it's something spiritual almost in a sense, connecting hip hop and all of its adherents and people who are participating in whatever way that they find it. You know what I'm saying? We got a language that we can all, and then it's even regional. We can get involved in understanding the geography of an art form. You find different elements of it expressed in different regions, different parts of the world, and the states for that matter.
Yeah, it has its own dialects.
For real. Yeah.
Do you remember your first encounter with like a hip hop show, or maybe like seeing MCs perform and DJs?
My first seeing people first perform what I would consider hip hop would usually be at the block parties, and it used to be around this time, in the summertime in Brooklyn. I remember begging my mother to take me down to the block party because I could hear the music and I could hear it so pronounced that it was like it felt like I needed to be there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we were here in Brooklyn on the 15th floor, and on my block, it used to be like you can hear different block parties starting. You can hear the one on St. James, which is 3 blocks to that way, and then one block here on my block. They used to do a big one in front of I want to say it was 450 Clinton Avenue, and my homie Mark, his daddy used to come out with all of the speakers and stuff. And they have an interesting narrative, too, they speak of over here around my way. And then, you know, it's an interesting side conversation, but a lot of people were saying that hip-hop was experienced simultaneously in various parts of New York City, and it just took a precedence and a big stronghold in the Bronx because I guess the emphasis of it, but it was some people who were claiming to have had the similar experience in their boroughs and stuff. So my first thing of actually seeing it was you go to the block party, you hit a DJ, and then you see the young people do the dances associated to the songs. So I remember it was times you go to the block party, everybody was pop locking, and everybody was break dancing. And then years later, when we got to like 1985, 86, people was doing the WAP. You know, they were doing other different type of dances, especially like 86, you know. See, I come from an early beginnings with music, period. So I have a jazz background. So as a child, I was able to see a lot of music being performed. But as far as like professional performers performing the actual hip hop, I got an opportunity to see Gangstar and DJ Premier make a whole album for a soundtrack in a Spike Lee movie when I was a kid. So I was around it on a deeper level. But I used to, you know, my parents used to take me to performances, and I'll see Gil Scott-Heron. I got pictures with me on stage with Gil Scott-Heron and stuff like that. But I don't really, to be honest, remember any real significant kind of performances until I got into my teenage years. And one of the earliest performances that sticks out in my mind was there was a group called the Leaders of the New School, and one of the artists' name was Busta Rhymes in that group, and I saw them perform at this nightclub in the city of New York City called the Octagon when I was a kid, and I was like way too young to be in there. I was in there like really loaded and hot, way too young, and I was around some real significant like street figures when I was a child, and these was like my big homies and shit. And I promise you, we seen Tim Dog perform, and he performed this song called "Fuck Compton," which was interesting because now I live in Los Angeles, and I was like, wow, that's interesting that this guy from the Bronx had like he had some shit to say to Compton. And this young brother that could have been one of the nicest rappers ever, his name, I want to say his name was Troy, but he was from Crown Heights. And he performed as an opening act for the Leaders of the New School and for Tim Dog as well. And I remember seeing Brand Nubian perform when I was in high school and stuff after school. And I even seen Lord Finesse perform with one of my childhood friends, Biggie Smalls. I grew up with Big, so I seen them perform, and you know, I got a lot of stuff like that. But my earliest ones, real performance, is really you seeing the homies, you know, breakdancing at the block party. You feel me?
Yeah. What was it like growing up with Big?
It's really interesting because he's really a genius, a multi-genius in many respects, very witty and very thought-driven, and like real, like to see, you know, I'm 48 years old now, and I'm a father, and to see the developmental psychology of young people and how they develop, to see him and remember him from when we were kids, and like the first time I was like around him and shit, to see him develop into what's become, you know, an iconic ubiquitous presence and the image for greatness in hip hop is an amazing thing. So, reflecting on the past, if you see little nuances and character, that it gives you an indicator of how you can be successful. And one of the ways is to be essentially have presence and openness and kind of a loyalty to your friends. Mm-hmm. So I seen him be very friendly to people he was day ones with. And, you know, some people might feel like they should have got more out of that experience, but we know now in hindsight that you know, time and everything happens for a specific reason and according to a higher plane, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was an interesting journey, that whole time period of being alive, but to know that I did not know that was going to happen for him, and for him to be as great as he is, and even the untimeliness of his death was like, it was a big impact on my community, and people are still sad and grief ridden from that. You know what I'm saying? So it's, you know, it's a lot to be said with that, but I look back in hindsight on my childhood, and I regret nothing of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that. Do you remember your first interaction with recording music, or, you know, doing spoken word as you do?
To be honest, we grew up, for real, King, we grew up kind of like writing other. This is an interesting thing. People my age will tell you this, that we used to write down all of our favorite lyrics from our favorite artists, mm-hmm. and favorite songs. And we was like the first rap genius with that.
Yeah.
I knew some people that could rap when we was young and stuff, but me seeing myself as a rapper, I was just too entrenched in being a fan. Interesting you say something about that. I have a poetry book, but it was more, I just seen the other day here in New York, and I was looking at it, but it was like, and I was laughing at my old shit though, but it was more like politically driven slam poetry, mm-hmm. you know, as opposed to me writing rhymes, because I got like a philosophy of rhyming that has transformed over several years. Like, I remember liking rhymes from back in the day and being told that was like some bullshit by my mother. You know, my mother didn't really let me listen to hip hop openly, and I used to have to sneak listening to hip hop. I used to have to sneak doing it, so that made me love it even more. So like, I'm literally like, got the radio as low as I can, but I'm still taping the show. This the Magic and Red Alert show on like 1982 and 83. You feel me?
Yeah.
So to be honest, I started. Some people know me to be a person that does hip hop, but I do it just as a social experiment and just to exhaust my artistic remedies. But the other thing is, what really got me into rapping kinda is my homie Planet Asia from Fresno, California, who's a hip hop legend and someone been in the game over 25 years and is one of the best lyricists in the world. And one time he was in the studio and we was on the phone. I spoke to him, and called me, or I called him, whatever. And he said he was in the studio. I was like, "Oh, listen to this," and I had spit him some bars that I had written on the. I was a passenger in the car listening to music on the 4th of July. Someone just told me to start writing down lyrics inside of my BlackBerry, you know, and I just did it. And I remember spitting the lyrics to him, and he was like, and I had got my flow from my little homie Savvy from California, from Inglewood family. And he gave me, what you call it, a flow. And the flow was like, it was like one of the ones I use today. I can hug a beat with this one. And I used that and I spit it to Asia over the phone. And he was like, "Come over here and record that right now." And I was like, "Nah, I ain't fucking with you, you know?" I was like, "I ain't doing that." And then something told me, I was like, what the hell did you move to California for? You know, it's like saying, I said, let me go over there, son. And I went over there and I made the song. And the next thing you know, I had started getting traffic, like not too shortly after, and from people like checking in. And I was wondering why are people checking in for me for music. And I had totally forgot that I had did that song with Asian. Then he sent me a version of it. And it sounded amazing. And then Apollo Brown did a version of it, had my vocals a cappella, and then they got two versions of it. And it was like a real good song. And then it just encouraged me to do more. And the next thing you know, I met the producers, Dirty Diggs and whatnot. And then it was always, I used to always tease my little brother who can rap and who can produce on a high level. I used to say, watch when I start rapping, watch. And I used to be playing, and then now that's like a little like joke nowadays. Like, wow, this is fucking crazy that you used to be playing like that. Now you actually got a few good songs, you know?
Hey, that's dope, man. How did you connect with Westside Gunn and start recording with him?
I met Gunn happenstancely going to visit my baby, for real, in Athens, Georgia, on a mega bus.
So it's kind of like a universal thing. You just met him randomly.
Yep.
And then from there, how'd you guys start recording?
Well, the interesting thing is, I was very, 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 very impressed by his music on the Hermes Part 2 joint he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And man, I was like, I used to play it every single day, right? I used to play it every single day. And I used to play it, and I used to play it around people. I sent it to my brother Asia. I was like, yo, listen to this on the phone, right? And we used to listen to it so much because I was so enthused by the very fact that here it is, somebody is actually doing some real rapping that I remember the enthusiastic nature of the time period. So now they're calling it nostalgia. But him and Conway and the sound, Derringer, the people who were involved in that project, from Monk, everybody, it was just amazing to me, bro, that I was like, these brothers got this stuff. They got that formula that my city had lost. And when I say my city, like Brooklyn had lost, and Queens and New York had kind of lost. People were listening to, no disrespect to, that sound, but they was listening to Eenie, Meanie, Miney, Oh, and all that kind of music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you see. That was a good song, though, back in the day. I ain't gonna lie, son. Then it went from that to me actually seeing over the course of time that the work ethic from Gunn and them is just amazing, and it's so undeniable that it almost acted as like a litmus test or a blueprint for anyone that wants to who wants to actually do something with the art form. If you took that blueprint, you would never lose. Consistency in staying in the booth, consistency in not losing the just your environs and wanting to go to another state or in the culture just to express your narrative from your own personal geography was just something courageous that nobody wanted to fuck with. You know what I'm saying? And they stood true with it. And and now we here. And the beautiful thing about it is the first time that God put me on one of the offerings, I was totally aloof to the fact of how much of an impact that would have on my brand. And, he'll tell you, it was kind of like, I was like the last person to get on the project because it was taking me a minute because I was doing like my normal life and stuff like this and stuff. So then I had to be like, yo, hold up, let me not mess this up and get on this and do it. And I did it. And one take, and I sent it. And then I promise you, I swear to God, kid, like exponentially. After the release of that Fly God joint, it was like shit has changed tremendously. You know what I'm saying? And it added more value to what I was been doing, which is I'm actually a teacher. I actually write books on the subject of Jewish mysticism on a scholarly level. I've been to several states in the United States of America teaching. I've also been to Europe and South America teaching. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people know me for that. So it added value, cultural value to what I was doing by engaging and involving myself with the projects that God put out based off of the graces of Him allowing me to do so. You know?
Hey, that's real.
For real.
You know, after that impact that you felt through working with Westside Gunn, how did that impact you and your brand? You know, did that change how you were doing things at all?
What it did was it allowed me to create a dialogue to speak to a different demographic who a lot of people think hip hoppers are not in pursuit of spiritual trends or things to improve the quality of their life, and that's something that's a lane that can always be filled by all of us, that we can always use, because the original intent of the art form was to do so. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, most definitely. Do you have any tips or advice for any upcoming artists, you know, of any genre or craft?
Yeah, I mean, in the general overview for artists, period, right now, I would say don't concentrate on streaming. I think that's created lazy music, and I think that like the overall, there's a lot of lazy music out, and all genres spread out evenly, because people are depending on streaming platforms to get their music out. And I think that model has kind of like it has changed people's lives, and it has broadened the playing field, and allowed people to hear sounds that perhaps they're landlocked and could not listen unless they went out. But that is the beauty of music. Like, you go places and you hear new sounds, and it just adds more value intrinsically to who you are and once everybody streams and everybody has access to streams, and it's like everybody can do it. Like, what are you streaming right now? And I'm streaming this, I'm streaming that, and it just makes lazy music. I think artists, depending on that, you can hear it in the music. I think artists need to start concentrating on making records like they used to. This is if you call it the music industry, this the record industry. They're not the digital download industry. You didn't go in the studio to make a digital download. See, it's a different psychology when you're going into the studio and you know that you're going to have a physical product that you're going to have to sell. So now it makes you start thinking about the texture of not just the sound, but also the texture of how you present your artwork as well. So the digital world, you just put a little picture up, parental advisory sign on the picture, and then boom, now you're a fucking music artist. Nah, it's a lot of things that go into it. And artists should, if you can't find an A&R or artist and repertoire type of person, you should have, for your reference, someone that you admire and looked up to, that their word regarding your art has some relevance to you. Because a lot of young people, in particular, they get in this circle of association and friends, and their friends don't have enough experience or the courage to tell them that their music is whack. So once you're in that space and you're just creating whack music with your friends, you fuck around and get your feelings hurt when a stranger hears your music and doesn't really resonate with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, so you want that unbiased opinion.
Have unbiased opinions around you, and also opinions from people that you ask. Not having people around you that just offering up opinions on your art, because that can get kind of weird too. You know what I'm saying? For real.
Most definitely, man. Did you have anything coming up that you wanted to promote?
I'm always working, kind of, and I got a lot of products. So people, and I kind of like got a whole grassroots guerrilla thing going on with how people can, get at me.
Mm-hmm.
And they can reach me on Instagram or go to my website, that'smyson.com, where I got some of my books and my literature and my and I think I got a few records up there, vinyl, stuff like that. But I sell my vinyl for $100 plus, and I do so for a specific reason, and it's because I'm not over the media wall. I'm not a signed artist, you know what I'm saying? And my stuff is art, and I know the power of vinyl, and I know about rare vinyl, and that's what I'm in the front end of creating art and creating rare vinyls. So $100 is nothing for a rare vinyl, knowing in light of the fact, me and you been to record stores together.
Mm-hmm.
You heard? Thank you for taking me to that record store out there in Colorado. I really appreciate that. That was an awesome record store. But I promise you that we've seen records for ourselves that we know is way over $100, $200. You know what I'm saying? And they're priced at that range for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, yeah, that's real talk. But nah, man, I really appreciate your time and you just taking the time out of your day to chop it up with me, man.
And I appreciate the same here, bro.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Was there anything else that you wanted to speak on, or any other words of wisdom?
No, I just wanted to say I wish we would have did it earlier, but my timing and everything. Been moving around a lot of life stuff going on, but you always got me here. Then next time you do an installment, just and then inform me about the feedback you get from this one.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, peace and love. I appreciate you.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Appreciate you as well. Have a blessed day.
All right, thank you, King. Peace and love.
Yeah, peace. Welcome back to the podcast. Appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Today is August 8th, 2023. Today in hip hop history, NWA released their monumental album Straight Outta Compton on August 8th, 1988. This album includes classics like Fuck the Police, Express Yourself, Straight Outta Compton, Gangsta Gangsta, Something to Dance To, many, many more. One of the most pivotal albums in hip-hop. Definitely changed the landscape of hip-hop and changed how artists discuss politics and things going on in the world in their music. NWA was very pivotal with that, with the song Fuck the Police. Definitely made a huge impact in hip-hop when we look back on it. I mean, they even ended up getting a letter from the FBI because of that song, and they were told to not play it, so obviously they still played it. So yeah, that song definitely changed the game. Whatever you feel about it and whatever you feel about NWA as a whole, they're extremely iconic and monumental and influential in hip-hop. So definitely check that album out. If nothing else other than the history lesson of the impact that it created. So yeah, shout out to NWA, Eazy-E, rest in peace, one of my favorite MCs of all time, just his voice. And Ice Cube obviously wrote a lot of his rhymes, but yeah, Eazy-E was just definitely one of my favorite MCs. Shout out to Dr. Dre, MC Ren, Ice Cube, DJ Yella. Also today in hip-hop history, Kool Moe Dee was born. One of the most influential MCs of the early days of hip-hop. Definitely someone to check out. Definitely someone who laid a foundation for MCs after him. Shout out to Kool Moe Dee. Appreciate y'all listening today. Hopefully your day is going well. Hopefully your day is staying positive, staying blessed. Life isn't always easy. Life isn't always perfect. But it's about getting up when you get knocked down and just striving for better. No matter what situation you're in, just know that you can create better for yourself, and those visions you have in your mind can become reality. You just have to believe in yourself, and you have to work hard enough on your passion and your craft to where that eventually will pay off. So, just believe in yourself, believe in those around you that you love and you care about, and understand that that energy can be manifested into this life. Whatever vision you have, believe in it. Every week I like to share an excerpt from one of my favorite books. This is one of my favorite poets. His name is Rumi. Just the way his poetry hits to me is very deep and spiritual and inspiring. So I just wanted to share some of that. This one is called No Expectations. A spirit that lives in this world and does not wear the shirt of love, such an existence is a deep disgrace. Be foolishly in love, because love is all there is. There's no way into presence except through a love exchange. If someone asks, but what is love? Answer, dissolving the will. True freedom comes to those who have escaped the questions of free will and fate. Love is an emperor. The two worlds play across him. He barely notices their tumbling game. Love and lover live in eternity. Other desires are substitutes for that way of being. How do you lay embracing a corpse? Love rather the soul which cannot be held. Anything born in spring dies in fall, but love is not seasonal. With wine pressed from grapes, expect a hangover. But this love path has no expectations. You are uneasy riding the body. Dismount, travel lighter. Wings will be given. Be clear like a mirror, reflecting nothing. Be clean of pictures and the worry that comes with images. Gaze into what is not ashamed or afraid of any truth. Contain all human faces in your own, without any judgment of them. Be pure emptiness. What is inside that, you ask? Silence is all I can say. Lovers have some secrets that they keep. And that really, to me, just kind of sums up Rumi's poetry and how deep and spiritual it is, but also very simple. But it also really just makes you think, about the words and the way that he pieced them together. So, I love poetry. Poetry is such a deep, important aspect of hip-hop and being an MC. Being an MC is truly being a poet in many aspects. And Tupac, definitely showed a great example of that with his poetry and his music. Shout out to all the poets, shout out to all the MCs, shout out to all the musicians, all the creative minds, everyone creating and spreading that positive energy. I know you can't always be positive. Sometimes you have to be negative. That's the balance, the duality of this life. But as long as you're truly about positivity and you try to radiate that energy, I salute you and you have my respect. Peace and blessings. I hope you have a blessed week, a blessed day. I hope you get to spend time with your loved ones and those around you that you care about. And I really appreciate you listening to my podcast. I'll see you on the next episode.